Welcome back, everyone. Got a really great comment, and I want to respond to it. When doing a kayaking trip, what actually goes in dry bags versus things that you can just pack in your kayak without a dry bag? I think the answer will surprise you. Let's go. Okay, good to see you all. This is an interesting thing, and I think that this will actually be a lot of fun. I got a comment from a guy named Jay, and I'm looking at it right here, which is why I'm not looking into the camera. His comment, I'm curious what you consider dry bag worthy. My quotes, not his. Do you put your tent, sleeping pad, camp chair, small table, etc. in a dry bag? I currently put absolutely everything in dry bags, but I'm not sure if this is necessary. So let's talk about this. I think that there's a lot of personal preference here, but first, I got to talk about this comment because Jay posted this comment not on a video, as a post. And something is going on with YouTube. I can't respond to this comment. I feel bad that I can't respond to this comment. I work really hard to respond to comments, and this is a worthy, very worthy comment. Do a response. I can't respond to it, so we're making a video. So Jay, I'm sorry I can't respond to it, but I hope this covers it. Okay, so let's talk about those specific things. So tent, sleeping pad, camp chair, small table. There's stuff on his list that I would add to that list of things that I don't put in dry bags. And I'll go through each of those in a minute. I will talk a little bit about dry bags. I will talk about the sort of concepts in packing, and I'll talk a little bit about misconceptions in sort of dry bags. So the first is this comment really only applies to people in touring kayaks and sea kayaks with dry storage, bow and stern, who are doing overnights or multi-day trips, right? You're going to load that boat filled with gear. I've done videos. I'll put a link to it up here. I've done videos about how to pack boats, and it's probably time for me to redo that. But I think you'd be surprised about the stuff that I don't put in dry bags. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is, like, I could use relatively big dry bags, but the nature of the shape of a kayak, I want to fill all of that space for a couple of reasons. First, I want to maximize the amount of gear that I can bring. Second, I want the boat to be balanced. And third, I don't want things moving around while the boat is moving around. So, like, I don't want a bag of water sliding across the inside of my boat when I do an edge turn. And so that means that everything needs to sort of be locked into place inside the boat. People don't like it when I use the term locked in. Normally, I am using it about people. I am not using that phrase about people, so just relax. I'm talking about gear. I don't want gear moving around inside the boat. It is far easier to fill all that space if you're not in dry bags. Gordon Brown, who is a paddling instructor that I really respect, talks about he uses lots of little bags because then you're packing less air and you can pack more gear. He specifically says food, but pack more gear. I don't use really little bags because I lose my mind and can't figure out where anything is, and I spend my days looking for stuff. So that's no good. You can't use really big bags because they won't fit. The biggest bag I use is a taper bag with all of my clothes in it. I want to say that's 40 liters, but it's usually rolled down pretty far, so it's probably like 25 or 30 liters. And I use that because it fits the shape of my boat really well. I like a taper bag. The biggest bag I use other than that is a 13 liter. But usually 7s or 10s. And it's easy with those to sort of fill in space. And in fact, on my boat, on the Delta 17, I can fit 3 13-liter dry bags right behind the rear bulkhead. If you're unaware, a bulkhead is just a wall in a boat. So right behind that rear bulkhead, and that's where I keep my food. It's close to the center of the boat. It's 1, 2, 3, so it's really well balanced. And each of those 13-liter dry bags, at least for me, will hold 10 days of food. So that's how I do a 30-day trip. There will be an additional bag with what are called freshies, which is the cheese and the vegetables and fruits and stuff like that I pack. So in theory, to cook dinner, I need to grab a stove pot and a food bag and a freshie bag, and that's really all I need to cook. A fuel bottle, right? You got some food bags that are dry bags. The pot, let's go to kitchen. This is my pot that will have a stove in it. This is not going in a dry bag. There is zero reason this can't get wet, which brings up another point, which is I don't care what boat you're paddling. If it's got hatches, they're going to leak, right? If you do a day of rolling, they're going to leak. If you're in water where waves are washing over your boat, they're going to leak. But here's the thing. They're drips. There will always be a little bit of water in the bottom of your dry storage, but it's not the end of the world. If you're getting more than a little bit of water, then there's a problem and you need to look into it. It's either a leaking bulkhead or a leaking hatch seal or something like that. You should always be checking hatch seals. You should always be checking bulkheads. Another big source of water in your boat is two things. You get water in the cockpit when you get in the cockpit, because you're getting in your boat, should be getting in your boat, floating or at least in a couple of inches of water. You're bringing water into the cockpit with you. That's pretty common. The other is a super common thing that happens is in the process of packing boats, dry bags will get a little bit of like rock debris or gravel or sand stuck to the outside of the boat. You don't want that inside your boat because it'll rub and cause trouble for both dry bags and boat. So what a lot of people do is they'll just take that dry bag, dip it in fresh water, and then put it in their boat. And that'll wash all the debris off the bag, but now you're bringing a little water into your boat. It doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. You got a little bit of water in the bottom of the boat. The other thing I will say about dry bags, and I used for years a dry bag that I didn't realize had a hole in it, a literal hole. And I found the hole by filling it with water. But the water barely leaked out of the hole. I had to press down on the bag to get it to shoot out. And that is another point here. First off, an inflated or a dry bag that is filled with stuff is not submergible. The roll top closure is not designed to be submerged because it doesn't have to be. They are never going to be submerged. If you were like in the middle of a paddle and opened a hatch cover and started pulling out dry bags and throwing them in the water, they're not going to sink because there's so much air trapped in them, regardless of what is in there. Most of the time, they'll be pretty buoyant. And if there was a small hole, there's not enough pressure exerted on that hole to flood the bag. You may get a little bit of water in there, but it's not like the bag is going to fill with water. Because remember, if water's going in order for it to go in, some air has to come out. That's going to be a slow process. I have never had water leak in through the roll top closure just because there is not enough pressure. Like I've had people comment, oh, 3 rolls on a dry bag is the minimum. I've never seen one leak. I've done 3. I've done 2. I've only done more than 3 if like I need to make a bag smaller. But people who are rolling 4, 5, 6 times because that's safer, you're wasting your time. The water's not getting in there. But I don't care if this gets a little bit of water in it, right? I tend to do trips where it's raining. I tend to prefer the shoulder seasons because there are fewer people out. I like Alaska where it rains a lot. This is going to get wet when I pull it out of the boat. So I don't care if this gets wet. I don't care if my stove gets wet. Totally not a big deal. What else was on his list? Oh, so this wasn't on his list. So tent. Let's go to shelter. Actually, there's a tent right here. This is not my tent. My son has got some gear here in the gear room. This is a 2-person tent in its storage bag with its poles. It's not getting packed like this. It's getting broken apart into 3 pieces. Poles, body of tent, fly of tent. Sometimes I'll stick one of the items in here. So like the body of the tent, I might stick back in here and just pack it like that. Sometimes I'll pack the rain fly just on its own in the boat and use it to fill up space. But usually I'll stick it in a dry bag just because I've got a ton of dry bags. I may not even roll the dry top. I'm not worried about it. I don't care if it gets wet. If it's raining, it's going to be wet anyway. But I want all of these things to be soft because it's easier to make them fill the shape of the boat, to conform to the shape of the boat. So I have less air gap or space gap between the gear and the hull. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I pack it into 3 pieces. The poles, which are right here in this, the poles are just going to go straight up the bow, usually in the pole bag, not waterproof. And if I'm putting the other in a dry bag, it's just because I have dry bags. I could just as easily be a stuff sack. So this is absolutely not going in a dry bag. Camp chair, not going in a dry bag. It's going to pack just like this. It's a great way to take space. I don't care if it gets wet. It's going to dry. If it is wet, I'm going to open it up and it's going to be dry pretty quickly. And if it is a little bit damp, if I'm in the backcountry, I'm wearing something that's water resistant anyway, or at least wicks moisture. I don't care if I get a little damp, not the end of the world. Let's see what else is on that list. Sleeping pad. That will be sleep. Sleeping pad. This is the old pad. This is my REI flash pad. I love it because it's only 15 ounces. This is probably water resistant. I'll pack it just like this in this stuff bag. If this is going to get wet, it's going to be just the edges of the pad right in here. No big deal. No big deal at all. I don't care. Let it go. What else? Small table. I don't know where my small table is. Kitchen? Kitchen, because I use it to cook on. It's getting packed just like this. It's metal. I don't care if it gets wet. No big deal. Gets wet. Doesn't matter. Water bottles, stuff like that, I don't care about. What do I care about? What goes in dry bags? I've got a dry bag of sort of personal stuff, which is going to be like the book I'm reading, my phone, earbuds, personal meds, toothbrush, toothpaste, stuff like that. Sunscreen that's not in my PFD. That's in a dry bag. Headlamp may be in there, depending on what time it gets dark. Otherwise, it might be in my PFD. So that's a dry bag. Food, I've already mentioned, gets a dry bag. First aid kit gets a dry bag. Oh, you know, I'm doing this. I got a gear list. Don't I have a gear list? Gear list. This gear list, by the way, is available on Ko-fi for download. I think it's $4.99. It's multiple pages. It's all the stuff that I pack. Clothing goes in a dry bag. Paddle clothing I'm wearing. I cheat on some nav stuff. Some nav stuff goes in my map case, which is technically, I'm doing this too much in this video, technically a dry bag. It is waterproof. Personal bag. Big one. Sleeping bag. Sleeping bag goes in a waterproof compression sack. I have a couple different brands that I'm using. Historically, I've used the Sea to Summits. I really like those. I've been using the Zen Bivy waterproof compression stuff sack lately, which is really, you're just buying the compression part and you use it on the regular stuff sacks, which I really like, because if you put a hole in a compression stuff sack and you can't repair it effectively, like I've got a torn seam on one that I can't really repair, that's garbage, unfortunately. But if I do that on the Zen Bivy, I can just swap out one or the other, which I really like. And I really like the purge valve. The Sea to Summit use Event, which a lot of people don't like. I really like Event. The best rain jacket I ever owned was Event. I miss that jacket. Yeah, so sleeping bag goes in a waterproof compression stuff sack. I don't care if I'm damp or wet all day long. I do care if I don't have a warm cocoon to sleep in. That, for me, at the end of the day, is heaven. And I've done trips where I didn't pack. My very first multi-day trip was on the Hudson River, and I put my sleeping bag, came in a stuff sack, and it was a synthetic bag, and I just packed it in its stuff sack. And the little bit of water in the bottom of a boat got sucked into that got sucked into that stuff sack. The bottom half of my sleeping bag was wet, and I wrung it out and went to sleep in it, and it was yucky and gross and clammy, but I woke up the next day and it was dry. That's the beauty of synthetics. So that taught me right there. I've always put it in a waterproof dry bag, and that I'm a little fanatical about. So those are the things that I put in dry bags. I will occasionally use a dry bag just for organization, as I said, because I have them, but like kitchen stuff doesn't go in it, fuel doesn't go in it. Yeah. Shelter doesn't go in it unless it's like just for organization. That, my friends, is everything. So to go back to Jay's original comment, if I can find it, there it is. Tent, no. Sleeping pad, no. Camp chair, no. Small table, no. Etc. A lot of etc. is that for Brett, don't go into a dry bag. Now, I need to put a big asterisk on this. This is what I do. If that makes you uncomfortable, and I'm sure someone in the comments will be like, you are crazy. Your tent is going to be soaked. My tent is soaked anyway. Your tent is going to be soaked. You got to put it in a dry bag. If my tent gets soaked, I set it up and just the wind blowing over it, it's nylon. It's not going to absorb moisture. Just the wind blowing over it, it's going to dry it pretty quickly. So yeah. And I pack a quick dry pack towel that will absorb a ton of water. And if something is soaked and it drives me crazy, I can dry it off with that. So I don't stress over that stuff, except the sleeping bag. That's got to be secure and really good. But the other stuff, it can get wet. It can get wet. I don't care. It's going to be fine. So there's your answer, Jay. Again, I'm really sorry that I couldn't respond. I have no idea. I've tried multiple devices. I've tried the web. I've tried the app. Nothing is working on YouTube Studio. I'm not quite sure where he posted it as a comment. I think it's in the post in the community tab, but I can't get to it. I can't answer it. I'm really sorry, Jay. Okay, if you have questions, you have comments, let me know down below. We're still let's hit the hype button. There's the new hype button. I just got notified that I got my first hype, but it was before I started asking people to hype because none of those videos have gone live yet. My books and gear lists and all that stuff, the guides way, all about how I pack stuff and use gear is on Ko-fi. Links are down below. My books in paperback form are available on Amazon. Otherwise, I'll see you on the water.